Horse displays head-to-head affection, sparkles horse guards. Royal Guard, King's Guard, Horse, London. In the heart of the city, the Horse Guards parade was coming alive with the familiar sounds of hooves, boots, and crisp commands. The air carried the faint scent of straw and leather, and the soft whinnies of horses blended with the distant chatter of early morning tourists. It was a place steeped in tradition, where every movement was precise and every participant, human and animal alike, knew their role. Among the regiment of horses and soldiers preparing for the day's ceremonies, two horses quietly stood out, though not immediately noticeable to the casual visitor. Majesty and Valor were two magnificent horses, tall and proud, with glossy coats that shimmered even in the gentle morning light. Majesty's coat was a deep chestnut, rich and warm, with a mane that fell like silk along her strong neck. Valor, on the other hand, was a striking black horse, his muscles rippling beneath his sleek fur. Both had been trained for the ceremonial duties of the King's Guard, and both were highly disciplined. Yet beneath their training and regimental precision, there was a softness, a gentle humanity in their nature that those who worked closely with them could not help but notice. The soldiers assigned to the horses treated them with care, brushing their coats until they gleamed and carefully fitting the ornate saddles that would later be used in parades. But beyond the basic routines, there were moments when the personalities of the horses began to shine. Majesty was calm and gentle, often tilting her head as if to observe the world with quiet curiosity. Valor had a playful side. He sometimes nudged the guards with his nose, seeking a small treat or a scratch behind the ears. When they were together, an unspoken understanding seemed to exist between them. It was subtle at first, a nuzzle of the nose, a soft whicker, but over time it became something unmistakable, affection. On this particular morning, the courtyard was especially lively. Guards polished their boots until they reflected the rising sun. Horses shifted nervously but obediently in their stables, and the first visitors of the day were already gathering beyond the gates, eager for a glimpse of the ceremonial preparations. Amid the bustle, Majesty and Valor were led into the open courtyard. The two horses approached each other slowly, almost cautiously, their hooves making soft, rhythmic sounds on the stone ground. For a brief moment, they stood side by side, sniffing the morning air, as if taking in the energy of the city around them. Then, something remarkable happened. Majesty gently lowered her head toward Valor, and he responded in kind. Their foreheads touched lightly, an intimate gesture of trust and familiarity. For a moment, the world around them seemed to fade. The polished boots, the orders being shouted by the guards, the tourists snapping photos, all of it became background noise. What remained was a quiet connection, pure and simple, between two animals who had formed a bond that went beyond mere companionship. The soldiers watching couldn't help but smile. They had seen plenty of horses over the years, but there was something special about these two. The way they interacted was almost human in its tenderness. Some of the younger guards, just beginning their training, paused in awe. One whispered to another, "Look at that, they really seem to care for each other." The older soldiers merely nodded, knowing that such bonds were rare, yet not entirely surprising. Horses, after all, were intelligent and social creatures. In a regiment where discipline was paramount, the ability of Majesty and Valor to show affection for one another was a small but meaningful reminder that emotion could exist even in a structured world. As the morning progressed, the pair continued their gentle interactions. When a guard approached to adjust a bridle, Valor leaned into the touch, eyes half closed in contentment. Majesty, meanwhile, nuzzled Valor again, as if checking on him, her soft whinny almost like a whispered greeting. The rhythm of the courtyard continued around them, hooves clattering, commands being called, tourists murmuring. But for Majesty and Valor, time seemed to slow during these moments of closeness. The connection between the two horses also had practical benefits. Being in a busy and sometimes noisy environment could be stressful for any animal, especially when large crowds gathered for parades or ceremonies. The presence of a trusted companion offered comfort. Majesty and Valor had learned, over months of working side by side, to rely on one another for reassurance. When one became tense, the other's calm demeanor would help ease the nerves. When one was playful or curious, the other would join in, creating a balance that made both horses more confident and stable in their demanding roles. The guards were well aware of this bond and sometimes used it to help train the horses. When a new recruit horse arrived at Horse Guards Parade, the seasoned horses, including Majesty and Valor, would set an example. Watching how the pair interacted, respectful, gentle, yet full of personality, helped newcomers understand the subtle ways horses communicated and supported each other. It was a living lesson in trust and companionship, one that no manual or formal training session could replicate. By mid-morning, the courtyard had fully awakened. Guards moved into formation, horses were saddled, and the first official ceremonies were about to begin. Majesty and Valor were guided to their assigned positions, side by side as always. Even in the midst of preparation for a public display, the horses found a way to exchange a quiet greeting, a soft nudge of the nose, a brief touch of the forehead. The ritual was small, almost imperceptible, but it spoke volumes about the depth of their connection. For the spectators who would later watch the parade, such details often went unnoticed. The grandeur of the uniforms, the precision of the guards, the pageantry of the ceremony captured most of the attention. Yet, for those who knew where to look, the story of Majesty and Valor was impossible to ignore. It was a reminder that even in a world built on discipline and tradition, life and emotion thrived in small, meaningful ways. As the sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows across the courtyard, the horses continued their gentle exchanges whenever the opportunity arose. A touch here, a nuzzle there, a brief glance of understanding, it all added to the quiet magic of the morning. Guards who had been around for years noted that it was moments like these that made their work rewarding. Beyond the pomp and ceremony, beyond the tourist crowds and strict schedules, there existed a living, breathing story of connection, loyalty, and affection. By the time the first parade of the day began, Majesty and Valor were calm, composed, and ready. Their bond, strengthened by countless small gestures, allowed them to face the day with confidence. As they stood side by side, the sunlight glinting off their glossy coats, there was a sense of harmony in the courtyard, a feeling that extended from the horses to the soldiers who cared for them, and if one looked closely, to the city itself. And so, in the quiet moments before the ceremonial drums began, before the crowd grew restless with anticipation, Majesty and Valor shared one last gentle gesture. Their heads met softly, a tender sign of companionship and mutual understanding. It was a simple act, yet it carried the weight of trust, affection, and friendship. In that instant, everything else, the routines, the commands, the formality, faded away. What remained was the pure, unspoken bond between two extraordinary animals, quietly reminding everyone that even in a world defined by rules and appearances, love and connection always find a way to shine. As the days passed at Horse Guards Parade, the bond between Majesty and Valor became increasingly evident to everyone around them. What started as subtle gestures, a nudge here, a gentle wicker there, began to develop into a clear pattern of mutual understanding and companionship. The soldiers who worked closely with them started to notice small, fascinating details about how the two horses interacted, and it became impossible to ignore the connection. Morning routines had become something of a ritual for the pair. Each day, when the sun peeked over the rooftops of London, Majesty would lift her head, stretching her long neck and scanning the courtyard for signs of activity. Valor, never far behind, would trot lightly toward her, his hooves echoing against the cobblestones. Their movements seemed coordinated, almost as if they were aware of each other's rhythm. When one shifted slightly, the other mirrored it. When one pawed gently at the ground, the other paused and watched with quiet curiosity. The soldiers found themselves fascinated by this display of companionship. They had trained horses for years and understood the importance of discipline, but they had rarely seen such an affectionate bond between two animals assigned to ceremonial duty. Guards would often pause to watch as the two horses gently touched heads or nudged one another. Sometimes they would graze side by side, tails occasionally brushing, as if sharing an unspoken conversation. Those who witnessed it often felt a warm sense of calm, a reminder that genuine connection can exist in even the most structured environments. It wasn't only the physical gestures that revealed their growing bond. Their behaviors were synchronized in ways that suggested emotional awareness. If Majesty became tense, perhaps due to an unusually loud noise or the presence of a large crowd, Valor would instinctively move closer, nuzzling her or standing beside her in a protective, reassuring stance. Conversely, when Valor showed signs of restlessness, Majesty would remain calm and offer subtle encouragement, like a gentle touch of the nose or a soft whinny that seemed to say, "It's okay. I'm here with you." The training routines at Horse Guards Parade were rigorous, designed to instill discipline and precision. The horses had to stand still for long periods, respond instantly to commands, and remain composed despite distractions from tourists or sudden noises. Yet even within these demanding expectations, Majesty and Valor's interactions never wavered. Their affection did not interfere with their duties. Rather, it seemed to enhance their composure. Guards noticed that when the horses were near each other, they remained calm and focused, completing their tasks with an unusual level of poise. One particularly memorable morning illustrated just how deep their connection had become. A new recruit horse had been brought in for training, a spirited young stallion with a glossy brown coat. The young horse was nervous, prancing and whinnying in the courtyard, uncertain of the new environment and the strict rules that governed the parade. Majesty and Valor, positioned nearby, immediately noticed the newcomer's distress. Without any command, they approached in unison, their movements gentle and measured. Majesty lowered her head, nudging the young horse softly, while Valor circled around, his presence calm and reassuring. Within moments, the young horse began to relax, sensing the unspoken support offered by the two veterans. Guards watching this quietly exchanged glances, amazed by how the pair instinctively comforted their fellow horse. As the week went on, the pair's bond became a small source of inspiration for the guards themselves. The soldiers were dedicated to their duties, but the repetitive nature of ceremonial life could sometimes feel exhausting. Witnessing Majesty and Valor interact reminded them of the importance of companionship and trust, not only among animals but among people as well. A quiet sense of camaraderie spread through the courtyard. Guards would smile at the pair, knowing that even in a highly disciplined environment, simple gestures of kindness and loyalty mattered immensely. During ceremonial preparations, their affection took on new dimensions. When guards fitted the horses with intricate saddles and polished harnesses, the pair would often stand close, nuzzling each other subtly as if exchanging encouragement. One morning, as a cold drizzle fell over the courtyard, Majesty shook off the water that clung to her coat, sending tiny droplets flying. Valor responded by gently nudging her side, a small gesture that seemed to convey, "We can face this together." Guards who observed this quietly chuckled, acknowledging that even in a regimented, disciplined setting, animals had their own way of expressing care and reassurance. Their companionship also revealed itself during moments of leisure. Between training sessions and ceremonies, the horses were sometimes allowed to roam the stable yard freely. It was during these times that Majesty and Valor's personalities shone brightest. They would trot side by side, tails brushing, occasionally pausing to sniff the ground or nibble at fresh hay. When one discovered a particularly sweet patch of grass, the other would often wait patiently or share the find, demonstrating an unspoken understanding that sharing and cooperation were part of their bond. Tourists and visitors began to take notice as well. While many came to witness the precision and pageantry of the king's guard, those who observed closely started to see the subtle gestures between the two horses. Cameras occasionally caught the pair touching heads, and social media posts soon followed. People from around the world commented on how heartwarming it was to see affection displayed in such a formal, historic setting. The story of majesty and valor reminded everyone that even amidst tradition and discipline, genuine connection could flourish. This growing attention did not affect the horses in any negative way. If anything, the awareness seemed to reinforce their bond. Guards reported that the pair remained calm and composed despite crowds gathering or cameras flashing. The two horses seemed to exist in their own small world, finding comfort and reassurance in each other rather than being distracted by the spectacle around them. Their relationship had reached a point where presence alone was enough. They needed no commands, no intervention. Just being together was calming, grounding, and reassuring. The bond between majesty and valor also carried a subtle lesson about empathy and emotional intelligence. Horses, like many animals, are capable of sensing mood and responding accordingly. Majesty often appeared intuitive, moving closer to Valor whenever she sensed he might feel uncertain or anxious. Valor, in turn, seemed equally attuned, responding with gentle nudges or supportive proximity. It was a partnership built not on hierarchy or instruction, but on mutual respect and understanding, a quiet testament to the power of companionship. In quieter moments, when the courtyard emptied and the city around them seemed to slow, the pair could often be found standing side by side, heads gently touching. The guards sometimes paused to watch these moments, feeling a sense of calm and satisfaction. The simple gesture, a nudge of the nose, a soft whinny, carried layers of meaning. It spoke of trust, reassurance, and the quiet joy of having a companion who understood you completely. Through these experiences, majesty and valor became more than just ceremonial horses. They were symbols of connection, teaching both guards and visitors alike about the importance of caring for one another. Their small but meaningful interactions offered reminders that even in structured, disciplined environments, compassion and friendship could thrive. It was a lesson that transcended species, a universal message that resonated deeply with everyone who witnessed it. As the week drew to a close, the bond between the two horses continued to strengthen. Each day added new layers to their relationship, new moments of trust and affection that cemented their connection. Guards began to rely on them not only as skilled ceremonial horses, but as partners who reminded them of the softer, quieter values that underpinned their work: loyalty, trust, and companionship. In the world of Horse Guards Parade, where tradition and discipline often took center stage, majesty and valor quietly stole the show. Their gentle gestures of head-to-head affection, their synchronized movements, and their unspoken understanding captivated everyone around them. It was a story not of grandeur or spectacle, but of connection and heart, a reminder that even in the midst of strict routines and historical pageantry, moments of genuine care and companionship could exist, quietly, profoundly, and beautifully. The morning of the King's Guard ceremony arrived, bringing with it a special energy that could be felt throughout Horse Guards Parade. The sun rose higher than usual, reflecting off the polished cobblestones and gilded helmets, casting shimmering patterns across the courtyard. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, one that both soldiers and horses could feel. For majesty and valor, the day was like any other in routine, yet somehow it felt different. They seemed to sense the importance of the moment, moving with quiet confidence as the guards prepared them for the grand event. The courtyard was alive with activity. Soldiers adjusted their uniforms with precise movements, checking every button and crease, while others ensured that the ceremonial weapons were perfectly aligned. Guards spoke in soft, clipped tones, coordinating the movements of both horses and riders. Majesty and valor, trained for countless ceremonies, stood patiently as soldiers fastened intricate bridles and polished their harnesses until they gleamed in the sunlight. Yet even in the midst of such structured preparation, the pair found subtle ways to communicate, reinforcing their bond. As the ceremony approached, the crowd began to gather. Tourists, families, and photographers lined the perimeter of the parade ground, eager to witness the precision and tradition of the King's Guard. Children pressed against the railings, eyes wide with excitement, while cameras clicked in anticipation. Yet amidst this bustle, majesty and valor remained calm, their connection offering them reassurance. Before the formal procession began, they exchanged a gentle touch of the forehead, a small gesture that conveyed trust, friendship, and confidence. In that instant, their bond seemed stronger than ever, grounding them in the whirlwind of activity around them. The parade began with the measured march of the guards, boots striking the cobblestones in perfect unison. Drums beat rhythmically, trumpets sounded, and the ceremonial procession moved forward with elegance and precision. Majesty and valor followed their usual positions, side by side, their polished coats gleaming in the sunlight. Their heads remained slightly lowered, attentive yet calm, their bodies in perfect synchronization with their riders. The crowd marveled at the spectacle, but those who looked closer could notice something truly special: the quiet, tender gestures exchanged between the two horses as they navigated the grand procession. During pauses in the parade, when the horses were expected to stand perfectly still, majesty and valor would occasionally nuzzle one another softly. A slight touch of the nose, a gentle glance, they communicated without sound, conveying reassurance in a world that demanded stillness and composure. Soldiers often whispered to one another, noting how remarkable it was that the horses maintained such calm under pressure, supported in part by the bond they shared. It was as if they were quietly saying to each other, "We are together. We are safe." The crowd, meanwhile, became enchanted by the subtle displays of affection. Tourists with cameras captured fleeting moments when the horses' foreheads touched, unaware that they were witnessing more than just disciplined animals. Social media posts later described the pair as a beautiful symbol of loyalty and friendship, with many expressing amazement at how such tender gestures could exist within a formal, ceremonial setting. Those brief moments of head-to-head affection became the highlight for many observers, offering a rare glimpse into the emotional world of these remarkable animals. Majesty and valor's behavior also had a calming influence on the other horses in the parade. Younger or less experienced horses, sometimes nervous in the presence of large crowds and loud music, seemed reassured by the sight of the two veterans calmly standing together. When a young horse shifted nervously, Valor would position himself nearby, offering silent support through proximity and gentle movements. Majesty, always attentive, would nuzzle the other horse lightly, demonstrating patience and encouragement. In these ways, their bond extended beyond themselves, quietly helping to maintain the composure of the entire parade. The guards themselves were deeply aware of the pair's unique connection. Riders often exchanged glances of admiration, knowing that these small gestures of camaraderie were more than superficial. There was a subtle lesson in the horse's behavior, a reminder that emotional awareness and empathy could be found even in the most disciplined and formal settings. Some guards reflected on how this mirrored human relationships. That trust, support, and understanding were crucial for teamwork, whether among soldiers, colleagues, or friends. Majesty and valor became living examples of this principle, silently teaching lessons that words could never fully capture. Midway through the ceremony, a sudden gust of wind swept across the parade ground. Banners flapped, hats shifted, and some horses momentarily tensed. But not majesty and valor. Without hesitation, they moved slightly closer, heads gently touching, as if to reassure each other that everything was under control. Guards watching could hardly hide their smiles, witnessing the quiet power of the horses bond in a moment that could have easily caused disruption. It was a demonstration of trust, patience, and companionship, an unspoken agreement that they could face challenges together. The ceremony continued, with every detail executed flawlessly. As the guards performed their routines, the horses remained poised, elegant, and attentive. Tourists marveled at the spectacle, but some of the more observant visitors noticed the small gestures between majesty and valor. A slight tilt of the head, a subtle nuzzle, a quiet glance exchanged, all conveyed a depth of feeling that transcended the pageantry. For those who took the time to notice, the story of the two horses became the real highlight of the day. After the main parade, the horses were led back to the stables. The day had been long and the crowds had been large, but majesty and valor seemed unaffected by the exertion. Instead, they continued to show affection toward each other, a gentle reminder that their bond was constant, not just a response to ceremonial stress. Soldiers led them to their resting area, speaking softly and offering pats of praise. The pair nuzzled one last time before settling into the familiar comfort of their stalls. Even in the quiet aftermath of such a grand event, their connection remained evident, offering reassurance and companionship that no words could fully describe. The story of their bond began to spread quickly. Guards shared anecdotes with colleagues, tourists posted images and videos online, and soon local newspapers highlighted the pair as symbols of loyalty and friendship within the historic Horse Guards Parade. For many, the narrative of majesty and valor brought a personal touch to a formal, highly structured event. It reminded people that even in grand traditions, moments of intimacy and emotional connection could exist, quietly capturing hearts in ways that spectacle alone could not. In the days that followed, the guards noticed something remarkable. The attention the pair received did not disrupt their routines or affect their behavior negatively. If anything, it reinforced the strength of their bond. Majesty and valor remained focused and disciplined, yet continued to exchange small gestures of affection whenever the opportunity arose. The relationship between them had grown so strong that it became almost instinctual, a natural, comforting part of each day. Their presence also inspired younger guards and visitors alike. The pair's loyalty and care for one another offered lessons in empathy, teamwork, and emotional intelligence. Observers could see that affection, trust, and companionship were not weaknesses. Rather, they were sources of strength that enhanced performance, confidence, and resilience. The horses had become living symbols, not only of tradition and ceremony, but of the deeper values that connected all living beings: trust, care, and mutual support. As the sun set over London, casting long shadows across the parade ground, the pair stood together once more. The day had been filled with the excitement of the King's Guard ceremony, the energy of crowds, and the precision of military discipline. Yet despite the grandeur and formal expectations, majesty and valor had remained true to their bond, quietly demonstrating the power of connection, trust, and affection. In a world of structured routines and public spectacle, they were a gentle reminder that love and companionship could thrive in even the most disciplined settings. By the time night fell, guards returned to the stables with the horses, ensuring they were comfortable and well fed. Majesty and valor settled beside each other, their heads resting close, a final gesture of reassurance before sleep. For the soldiers, the tourists, and anyone who had observed them, the day had provided more than a show of tradition and ceremony. It had offered a glimpse into the emotional lives of animals, a story of friendship and loyalty that would be remembered long after the parade ended. In the days following the King's Guard ceremony, the story of majesty and valor began to spread far beyond the walls of Horse Guards Parade. What started as whispers among the soldiers quickly reached tourists who had visited the parade, and soon social media was filled with pictures and short videos of the two horses showing head-to-head affection. For many, it was a moment that seemed almost magical, a glimpse of genuine emotion in a world often defined by rules, discipline, and tradition. The local newspapers picked up the story, running articles with photographs of the two horses standing side by side, foreheads gently touching, their eyes calm and trusting. Headlines described them as friends in uniform or the gentle heroes of Horse Guards Parade. People were fascinated by the idea that amidst the pageantry, the precise routines, and the strict discipline of ceremonial life, two horses had formed a bond so strong that it was visible to anyone who cared to notice. For the guards, who had worked with majesty and valor for months, it was heartwarming to see the pair gaining recognition. Visitors to the parade began looking for the horses specifically. Families, tourists, and even locals arrived earlier than usual, hoping to catch a glimpse of the remarkable duo. Children would point excitedly, saying, "Look, the horses that are friends," while parents smiled and explained the importance of kindness, trust, and caring for one another. Photographers and journalists often lingered, capturing the subtle gestures of the horses, the gentle touch of a forehead, the soft nuzzle, the quiet whinny that seemed to say, "We're together. We are safe." These small, tender moments became the highlight of many visitors' experiences, even more memorable than the pageantry itself. For the soldiers, the growing attention was a mix of pride and amusement. They had always known that majesty and valor were special, but seeing people from around the world captivated by their bond brought a sense of fulfillment. Guards began to take extra care with the pair, brushing their coats until they shone even brighter, ensuring their saddles were perfectly adjusted, and giving them extra attention during training. It was not because the horses needed it for the ceremony. They were already trained and disciplined, but because the guards recognized that this was a story of connection that mattered to many. Interestingly, the attention did not seem to affect the horses negatively. In fact, majesty and valor continued to act as they always had, calm and affectionate. Their bond remained the anchor in the midst of the growing interest. Even when a crowd gathered closer than usual, or when cameras clicked rapidly around them, the pair remained composed, seeking comfort in one another's presence rather than becoming anxious or distracted. Guards often noted that this was a testament to the strength of their relationship. Their trust in each other made them resilient, allowing them to navigate the attention and the noise without fear. One afternoon, a group of schoolchildren visited the parade. They had been learning about British history and the traditions of the King's Guard, but they were most captivated by majesty and valor. Their teacher explained how horses were not only strong and disciplined, but also capable of forming deep friendships. The children watched closely as the two horses exchanged gentle nudges and soft touches, whispering to one another with movements that were subtle but full of meaning. It was a lesson in empathy, patience, and loyalty, something that no textbook could teach. Veteran guards often shared their stories with newcomers, pointing out the moments when majesty and valor's gestures went beyond the ordinary. They explained how horses communicated, how body language could convey feelings of trust, concern, and friendship. New recruits marveled at the pair's interactions, realizing that discipline and affection were not mutually exclusive. In fact, the guards saw how the horses' connection made them better performers, enhancing focus, stability, and confidence during ceremonies. Majesty and valor were not only friends, they were role models for other horses and a source of inspiration for the human soldiers around them. As media attention grew, the story reached online audiences far beyond London. People from other countries commented on how heartwarming it was to see such affection between two horses. Many shared personal reflections, writing about their own pets, their friendships, and the small ways in which trust and companionship enriched their lives. Videos of Majesty and Valor's gestures went viral, often accompanied by captions celebrating loyalty, friendship, and the beauty of silent communication. For some, it became a reminder that connections, whether between humans or animals, were powerful, enduring, and essential. The story also highlighted an important lesson about observation. In a world that often moves quickly, it is easy to overlook small but meaningful gestures. The interactions between Majesty and Valor were subtle, easy to miss if one was not paying close attention. Yet those who did notice were rewarded with something extraordinary, a quiet display of love and trust that transcended species. It reminded visitors, guards, and online audiences alike to slow down and appreciate the small, beautiful moments that surround them each day. Guards noticed that the attention even affected their own routines in a positive way. The pride and admiration from visitors encouraged them to approach their work with renewed care and mindfulness. They began to notice more details about each horse, the way their ears twitched in response to commands, the subtle differences in how they moved, the way they looked at each other during quiet moments. What started as a story about two horses became a lesson for everyone at Horse Guards Parade. That dedication, empathy, and attention to detail were valuable not just for the ceremony but for life itself. Interestingly, the affection displayed by Majesty and Valor sometimes inspired visitors to act more kindly toward one another. Parents would point out the horses' gestures to their children, explaining the importance of caring for friends and family. Couples held hands and whispered about loyalty and love. Even strangers waiting in line for the parade would smile at one another, subtly reminded that connection, trust, and kindness could be found in unexpected places. The two horses had become ambassadors of gentle humanity, their bond serving as a bridge between people and the natural world. Over time, the pair's fame grew, and with it came small tokens of appreciation from the public. Some visitors brought treats that were safe for horses, like apples and carrots, which guards would offer to Majesty and Valor. Letters and drawings arrived from children who had been inspired by the story, depicting the horses in moments of affection, often with hearts drawn above their heads. While the guards appreciated these gestures, they made sure that the horses remained healthy and stress-free, never turning attention into pressure. The focus remained on the genuine, quiet bond between the two friends, not on spectacle or performance. Even in their everyday routines, the pair's connection continued to shine. During training sessions, during grooming, and even while resting in their stalls, they found small ways to show affection. Sometimes it was as simple as standing close, their sides touching, or leaning their heads together while dozing. Guards who observed these moments often paused, feeling a sense of calm and gratitude for the lesson in friendship they were witnessing. It was a quiet, ongoing reminder that love, trust, and companionship were not only possible but deeply enriching. The story of Majesty and Valor eventually reached broader audiences, inspiring conversations about animal behavior, emotional intelligence, and the ways in which living beings communicate without words. Experts in equine behavior noted how remarkable it was to see such clear signs of attachment and emotional awareness. Scientists, educators, and animal lovers alike reflected on how observation, patience, and empathy could deepen understanding of not only animals, but humans as well. The pair had become a symbol, a living example of the importance of connection and trust in a busy, demanding world. In the evenings, after the final parades and ceremonies had concluded, the horses would return to the quiet of the stables. Guards would remove their saddles and harnesses, gently brushing their coats and offering small rewards. Even after the excitement of the day, majesty and valor would lean close, heads touching, sharing comfort and reassurance. It was a private ritual, a continuation of the bond that had grown stronger with each passing day. For the guards, this daily display was a moment of reflection and inspiration, a reminder of the quiet power of friendship and loyalty. As time went on, the story of the two horses became more than a passing tale. It was repeated in classrooms, written about in newspapers, and shared widely on social media. People marveled at the idea that two horses, trained for precision and discipline, could demonstrate such visible affection, teaching lessons about patience, empathy, and mutual support. The bond of majesty and valor had grown from a private connection into a symbol of hope, love, and the enduring power of friendship. In a world often filled with chaos, expectations, and the rush of daily life, the simple gestures between these two horses reminded everyone that the smallest acts of care could leave a lasting impression. The nuzzle of a forehead, the gentle whinny, the quiet presence beside one another. These were the moments that mattered, moments that transcended language, species, and circumstance. Majesty and valor had become a living story, teaching anyone willing to observe that connection, trust, and compassion were treasures worth cherishing. Time passed at Horse Guards Parade, but the bond between majesty and valor remained as strong as ever. Their days continued to be filled with ceremonies, parades, and training, yet amidst the structured routines, their quiet displays of affection never faded. The pair had become more than just horses in a ceremonial unit. They had become symbols of trust, loyalty, and companionship, capturing the hearts of guards, visitors, and people far beyond London. Every morning, the courtyard would come alive with the familiar sounds of hooves striking the cobblestones, boots echoing in rhythm, and the soft whinnies of the horses as they moved into position. Majesty and valor were always side by side, their movements in perfect harmony. Guards would lead them through grooming routines, carefully brushing their coats until they shone, and checking every strap and buckle to ensure that the ceremonial equipment was secure. Yet despite the precision required, the horses still found moments to touch heads or nuzzle gently, sharing comfort and reassurance with each other in ways that words could not describe. Their bond had grown so strong that it seemed instinctual. Guards often remarked on how the pair appeared to anticipate each other's needs and moods. If one felt nervous or tense, the other would respond immediately, offering a gentle nudge or a supportive presence. When the day's ceremonies were particularly long or the crowds especially large, the two horses remained calm, relying on each other for comfort. It was a remarkable demonstration of emotional intelligence, two animals understanding and supporting one another in a demanding, public environment. The soldiers who worked closely with them had grown to appreciate the quiet lessons the horses offered. Beyond the formal duties of the King's Guard, majesty and valor reminded everyone of the importance of companionship and empathy. New recruits often observed the pair with fascination, learning how subtle gestures could convey trust, reassurance, and understanding. Veterans reflected on how rare it was to see such a strong bond between animals in a disciplined setting, recognizing that this connection added depth and richness to their daily routines. Even visitors continued to be captivated by the story of the two horses. Tourists arrived early to watch the parade, not only for the grandeur of the ceremony but to catch a glimpse of majesty and valor. Children pointed excitedly, calling out to their parents, "Look!" The two friends. Photographers captured countless images of the pair nuzzling, standing side by side, or leaning gently against one another. Social media continued to share their story, with viewers from around the world marveling at the display of loyalty and affection. The pair had become ambassadors for kindness, teaching people everywhere that simple acts of care could leave a lasting impression. Over time, their story inspired small but meaningful actions among the public. Visitors would talk to their children about trust and friendship, reminding them to treat animals and humans alike with compassion. Couples, friends, and strangers would notice the subtle interactions and reflect on the value of loyalty and understanding in their own lives. Letters, drawings, and messages of appreciation arrived for the guards and the horses, celebrating the quiet beauty of their relationship. While the horses themselves remained unaware of their growing fame, the impact of their bond extended far beyond the stables, touching hearts across London and beyond. Back at the stables, the pair's daily rituals continued with unwavering consistency. Guards would remove the saddles after ceremonies, gently brushing the horses and offering small treats. Majesty and valor would often stand close together, leaning their heads in a gesture of reassurance before settling to rest. Sometimes they would doze side by side, their bodies close, foreheads occasionally touching even in sleep. These moments, small as they were, symbolized the depth of their friendship. They were never loud or dramatic gestures, yet their quiet significance resonated with anyone who took the time to notice. The pair's behavior also had a subtle effect on the other horses in the regiment. Younger or newer horses often looked to Majesty and Valor as examples of calm, disciplined companionship. Observing the pair's interactions taught them how to support one another in the face of challenges or long periods of standing still. Guards noticed that the overall morale and composure of the horses improved when Majesty and Valor were nearby. Their bond had created a ripple effect, influencing not only their own well-being, but the emotional stability of the entire unit. Despite the fame and attention, Majesty and Valor remained unchanged in their behavior. They were not performing for the crowds or seeking recognition. Their connection was natural, a part of their daily lives. Guards took care to ensure that the attention never became a source of stress. Visitors were encouraged to observe respectfully, while the horses continued their training and ceremonial duties without interruption. The balance of routine, attention, and natural companionship ensured that the bond between Majesty and Valor remained healthy, strong, and genuine. Over time, the story of the two horses became more than just a news feature or a viral post. It became a lesson. Guards, visitors, and online followers all began to recognize the value of empathy, trust, and patience. Majesty and Valor's relationship demonstrated that emotional intelligence was not limited to humans. Animals, too, could form deep, meaningful bonds. The pair reminded people that connection and loyalty could provide comfort, stability, and strength, even in challenging circumstances. The years passed, and though ceremonies continued, Majesty and Valor's story endured. Guards who had worked with them shared anecdotes with new recruits, passing down the lessons of trust and companionship. Visitors who had once seen the horses as part of a spectacle began to understand them as individuals, each with their own personality and capacity for affection. Children who had marveled at the pair grew older, but often remembered the gentle nudges, the quiet head-to-head touches, and the calm confidence that radiated from two horses who truly cared for one another. Even as the public attention evolved, the core of their story remained simple and profound. It was not about fame, grandeur, or ceremony. It was about connection. Majesty and Valor exemplified how even small gestures, nudging a friend's forehead, standing close during moments of tension, could communicate loyalty, care, and understanding. Their relationship was a quiet celebration of companionship, a living example of how meaningful bonds could thrive in environments defined by discipline, routine, and tradition. One evening, after a long day of ceremonies and public admiration, the pair returned to the stables. Guards removed their harnesses and brushed them meticulously, whispering words of praise. Majesty and Valor leaned close, foreheads gently touching as they had done countless times before. The warm glow of the stable lights reflected off their glossy coats, illuminating the trust, love, and connection that had grown between them over months and years. It was a private moment, free from spectators, cameras, or accolades, yet it carried more meaning than any public display could. The soldiers who witnessed these quiet interactions often paused to reflect. In a world where routines were demanding, expectations were high, and traditions were strict, the pair's bond was a reminder that simple, meaningful gestures of affection and support could make all the difference. Their story had touched countless lives, teaching lessons in empathy, patience, and loyalty that extended far beyond the stables and parade grounds. Majesty and Valor became more than friends. They became a symbol of enduring companionship. They reminded everyone, from guards to tourists, from children to adults, that true friendship does not require grand gestures or constant attention. It thrives in quiet moments, in gentle touches, and in the reassurance that someone will always be there for you. Their bond had weathered the pressures of ceremonial life, the distractions of attention, and the passage of time, remaining steadfast and unwavering. As night fell over London, the stables grew silent. Majesty and Valor rested close together, heads touching, bodies relaxed. The world outside continued to move at its usual pace, but within those walls, a story of trust, care, and love endured. Guards left with a sense of fulfillment, knowing that they had witnessed something rare and beautiful, a bond that transcended routine, discipline, and expectation, teaching lessons that would last a lifetime. And so, the story of Majesty and Valor continued, not only in the memories of those who had seen them, but also in the lessons they inspired. Their quiet gestures of affection, loyalty, and companionship became an enduring legacy, a reminder that in a world often focused on performance and appearance, the simple acts of caring, supporting, and trusting one another were the truest measures of connection. Through their bond, they showed that love, friendship, and loyalty could thrive anywhere, even in the most formal and disciplined of settings. Majesty and Valor remained side by side, each finding comfort in the other, their bond as strong as the day it began. And in the hearts of those who had observed them, their story lived on, a living testament to the beauty of companionship, the power of trust, and the quiet magic of friendship.